Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take good care. The incident is the name of the movie. On a hotel's escalator, an vintage female wearing a wedding ceremony dress is ready to die even as holding a purple diary. For the duration of her final moments, she remembers the day she were given married and entered this lodge along with her husband. Meanwhile, Carlos returns to his apartment and unearths his more youthful brother Oliver in an alternatively restless and anxious kingdom. Carlos tries to cheer him up by means of explaining their mom has lent him an excellent chunk of cash, so that they gain't have to do whatever illegal to live to tell the tale anymore. This nevertheless doesn't calm Oliver down. However, before he can explain the motive for his temper, Detective Marco bursts into the room. Carlos straight away freaks out and points out they aren't doing something incorrect, but it's too late. Marco has already gotten a confession from Oliver by threatening him. As Oliver begs for forgiveness, Carlos asks for an arrest warrant, which Marco doesn't have. However, the detective nevertheless desires to drag the brothers to the station at gunpoint, causing Carlos to panic and start preventing him. Oliver facilitates him, and once they get Marco out of the way, they rush to the stairwell to break out. Marco without delay follows them, and as he actions his hand, he by chance shoots Carlos inside the leg and makes him fall. While Marco wonders what happened to his hand, Oliver runs to his brother's aspect and begins yelling for help to no avail. At that moment, they pay attention an explosion within the distance, but no yelling or sirens. Carlos' wound is bleeding quite badly, so Oliver ties his hoodie around it. Livid, Oliver tries grabbing Marco to get revenge. However, Marco pushes him against the horrific and threatens him into shutting up. Whilst Oliver says they need to take Carlos to the clinic, Marco refuses due to the fact he's sure that they could deal with him at the police station. Then Oliver enables Carlos' stroll, and the three guys start going downstairs. As he moves, Marco unearths some unfastened hairs on his clothes, but doesn't understand in which they arrive from. The trio receives to the door handiest to find it locked, so they hold going. However, regardless of how much they walk, they don't appear to make any development. It's as if the same ground repeats over and over. The group appears up and down, noticing there isn't an end in sight. Marco tells the brothers no longer to transport and begins fast going for walks downstairs, preserving a watch at the floor numbers going down and attempting all of the doors that are locked. But after plenty of running, he reveals Carlos and Oliver again, appearing in the back of them from above. Carlos can't help thinking if he's hallucinating from the ache. Dropping his mind, Marco takes the steps once more and Oliver retries the door to no avail. At that moment, Marco returns and is so greatly surprised to see the brothers again that he runs to take a look at. He throws his keys through the center of the stairwell, most effective for the keys to fall again to them from above. Marco asks the brothers in the event that they gave him something illegal as he factors his gun at them, but they guarantee him they're trapped much like him. It seems the steps are an infinite loop. Oliver has no signal on his phone and yelling for assist receives no answers. He hears his brother in pain and says he wants to cast off the bullet. However, Carlos refuses, saying it could emerge as an infection due to the fact Oliver can't do even the most primary everyday chores. Marco breaks the vending machine with a fire extinguisher to get some water, so Oliver receives a bottle as nicely to at least wash the wound. 4 hours later, the trio is still caught there. Marco opens his wallet to appearance at an own family photograph and finds a tiny card that he doesn't recognize, so he tears it into portions and throws it away. Then he well knows he has a few uppers for personal use, so he gives them to Carlos to help him break out his ache for a few hours. As soon as Carlos is unconscious, Marco and Oliver get food from the vending device and sit down together to speak. Marco indicates Oliver the circle of relatives photo, explaining that he was imagined to celebrate his 15th anniversary with his wife this night. Oliver's handiest answer is to threaten to kill him if Carlos dies. Then he receives his bag to test if it has anything beneficial, but it's no longer an awful lot. Day after today, Carlos wakes up, however he's slightly alive. With his ultimate breath, he tells Oliver to fee his existence and revel in it, which he became never able to do. Carlos dies in Oliver's fingers, and while Oliver cries, Marco tests the merchandising system to discover it's restocked itself. As Marco freaks out over the loop, a devastated Oliver grabs the gun and nearly kills him. However, Marco calms him down by way of pointing out his capturing had been a twist of fate and that he's just losing his thoughts because of the grief. Meanwhile, in a pleasant house within the countryside, Daniel is assisting his sister Camila research a magic trick concerning playing cards while their stepfather Roberto watches. Their mother Sandra reminds them to finish packing, since they'll cross on an avenue journey to visit the kids' biological father. Daniel takes his hamster and a deck of mini gambling playing cards. Sandra additionally asks him to seize Camila's spare inhaler. Earlier than they get to go away, they get a smartphone name from the children's father, and Sandra furiously assures him that Roberto Roberto hasn't drunk in 5 years, so he'll pressure perfectly soberly. Then the circle of relatives finally leaves, and for the duration of the journey, Roberto finds a random piece of bamboo, which he throws out the window. Finally, they stop at a fuel station and Roberto gives Camila a sip of juice even though she isn't supposed to have sugar because she's allergic. Then she is going to the bathroom, but first she gives her inhaler to Roberto to maintain it safe. Quickly, Sandra learns approximately what passed off and snaps at Roberto, calling him careless. The group gets again in the automobile, however simply after a couple of minutes. Camila starts off evolved having an asthma attack. Sandra and Roberto get out of the car to check on her and Roberto accidentally drops and steps on Camila's inhaler, right away destroying it. To make subjects worse, Daniel forgot to seize the spare. The family makes a decision to return domestic for every other inhaler, and shortly after getting inside the automobile, they listen an explosion going off in the distance. They return to the gas station, but there's nobody around, so Sandra simply grabs a few allergic reaction medicinal drug for Camila without paying. The journey maintains, and Daniel sees the road sign once more even as Sandra is yelling at Roberto, saying her ex were right to name him an inept drunkard. A controversy ensues and Daniel tries to inform them they aren't assisting, but they don't pay attention, so Daniel has to assist his sister stay calm. After riding for some time, they locate any other gas station, although Roberto thinks it seems exactly similar to the ultimate one. There's nobody right here either, so they must preserve going. Minutes later, they see the equal signal again, in order that they forestall the car as Roberto swears the road is simply repeating itself. Daniel doesn't believe the fellow anymore and attempts to go away. However, Robert picks him up and brings him lower back to the automobile. Sandra insists on maintaining going because she's desperate to assist Camila, who is starting to turn blue. They simply hold passing by the identical signal and gas station, now not to mention the auto's clock and Roberto's watch show a late hour despite the fact that the solar is still out. Eventually, Camila passes out and Sandra maintains on crying and yelling at some stage in the entire trip. After seeing the identical sign for the zillionth time, Roberto stops the auto and tells the others to wait whilst he walks off through the sphere at the right, hoping a different course will give a one-of-a-kind result. Camila is getting worse and Sandra can't stand it, so she drives away along with her youngsters, even as ignoring Daniel's warnings. She thinks she's caught in a nightmare and keeps telling herself to wake up. Whilst she stops the auto to have a breakdown, Daniel gets out with Camila, and Sandra continues going without noticing the youngsters are long past. Carrying his sister in his arms, Daniel walks all the way back to the road signal and watches Sandra skip through the loop. The following time she sees the gas station, she is going inside and hides to cry over her lack of desire. Lower back to Daniel, he lies down on the ground subsequent to Camila and unluckily has to watch her die. At that second, Roberto returns from the sector on the left, confirming that each area is within the loop. Time begins to skip and after 35 years, both men are nevertheless caught on the stairs. Marco is an antique man that can't stroll and has to drag his frame through the stairs. However, Oliver is center elderly and keeps himself energetic and healthful by means of reading the ebook from his bag, listening to his tuned participant, and doing everyday workout. Seeing that both the vending system and the bag reset every day, Oliver takes out all the items each morning and waits for the loop to duplicate them. This manner he's built a whole series of things that he maintains on the stairs, plus a shower made of water bottles. The nail clipper from his bag enables him reduce his hair and mustache. Marco's side isn't as tidy, and Oliver often has to assist him relieve himself right into a bottle. It's clear they've each lost their minds, although Oliver prays to Carlos' skeleton while it's time for the bag to reset, and every so often he brings Marco along, overlaying their faces with paper bags as they are saying a made-up prayer. There's additionally lots of writing at the wall that maintains music of the times and works as a diary for the duo's mad mind. Marco is enthusiastic about remembering things and is usually calculating his age, Oliver's, and even his daughter's, who need to be full adults by using now. Before going to sleep, Marco always repeats his own name in order now not to overlook it. At the escalator, the antique woman subsequently dies and a person passes via to take a hamster from her hand. At the Infinite Street, 35 years have also passed for the family, and they get food from the gasoline station, which additionally restocks itself. Roberto is an old man that lives like a pig within the automobile, nonetheless parked next to the road sign. Sandra is likewise very vintage and has grown to be unresponsive, yet Roberto nonetheless frequently sits her on his lap to do the dirty. Within the period in between, and grown-up Daniel lives on the sector together with his hamster. The usage of the things from the fuel station, he's constructed a respectable camp and has a device and location to preserve matters comfy for survival. He's additionally kept all of the drawings he made over time. On every occasion the reset occurs, he reveals an unbroken inhaler, which he furiously tosses away into a massive pile. He attempts to preserve himself busy through paying attention to his Walkman, going on walks to have lunch with nature, and gambling playing cards with his hamster. One afternoon, Roberto reveals steals Camila's plushie on the road and leaves it near Daniel's camp. After seeing it, Daniel is going to find Roberto, who mentions Sandra and notices that Daniel doesn't forget her. However, it doesn't wonder him due to the fact Sandra doesn't recall everyone either. Roberto is sure he has something vital to inform Daniel, however he can't remember what. Unexpectedly, Roberto says that's how vintage human beings are at the equal time as Marco, who starts screaming at 3 a.m. Oliver rushes to his side and hears Marco's epiphany. He says he's finally remembered what he had to mention. Because of this, he'll die quickly. At that moment, Marco well known shows he's virtually Daniel and that none of their reminiscences are actual, as it's in trade model in their actual lives. He changed into the only that triggered the loop whilst he killed Carlos. Again on the street, Sandra eventually dies and Roberto buries her subsequent to Camila. Daniel watches the technique in tears at the same time as thinking about his recollections with his sister. Roberto famous that Sandra stopped talking around 20 years in the past while Daniel left them to live by myself. He thinks it's an amazing element she died because she's finally unfastened from that hell. At that second, both Roberto and Marco begin feeling a terrible headache that reasons them to wiggle in pain for a while before announcing they see the whole thing definitely. That means they'll die soon. They affirm none of this is actual and it's simply an alternate version in their lives. Roberto and Marco brought on an incident that precipitated the loop in order that they propose Daniel and Oliver not to do the identical or they'll just get another loop going. They also suggest them to jot down their names down, no longer to forget about them. In truth, they were given the identical recommendation and forgot to do it. Roberto tells Daniel that after he finally sees a police vehicle, he'll forget his name. Marco tells the equal to Oliver, however, about an elevator, which the constructing doesn't have. Then Roberto famous his actual call is Ruben. When he turned into 10, he were given caught on a bamboo raft with a classmate and a teacher. Sadly, the instructor slipped and hurt the alternative boy inside the system, causing the incident. The boy bled for 3 days and died. So then Roberto and his trainer spent 35 years by myself on a raft that would never find land. Whilst the instructor changed into approximately to die, he additionally had a second of clarity and shared the same clarification Roberto is retelling now. The instructor had additionally been stuck in a 35 years, 12 months loop, but this happened in Limitless Educate Music. Roberto then changed into capable of return to land and began a new existence in which he met Sandra and the children. However, he didn't bear in mind whatever else till now. Marco was telling a comparable tale to Oliver, explaining he was once Daniel and that Roberto cautioned him now not to get into the police car. However, he did it besides and restarted his life as Marco with no memories. Each old men swear this is an actual, they're just caught in an emotional hell at the same time as their actual selves stay proper lives. By transferring physically and emotionally, they send their power to their real selves to keep them satisfied. They're the gadget that movements the real global. That is why a death is needed to cause the incident and why younger human beings survive the 35 years in a healthier way. They're subconsciously running for his or her real selves who are still at the cusp of life. Vintage people can't do the same due to the fact they're always stuck within the beyond and don't revel in existence. Earlier than dying, Roberto and Marco give Oliver and Daniel a touch purple diary complete of photographs and lifestyles notes. Oliver makes a decision to go back to his habitual, but Daniel buries Roberto with the relaxation of his family. Then he goes to the road and sees a police vehicle that wasn't there before. After making sure it's empty, he is going again to the camp, retrieves his hamster, and grabs a few things before burning down the rest. However, while he returns to the automobile and touches it, he forgets everything and drops the hamster earlier than driving away. With the police uniform he unearths in the automobile, Daniel reaches the metropolis, cuts his hair, and begins existence as Detective Marco, triggering a new loop by using killing Carlos. Meanwhile, Oliver tries to ignore the elevator door that has appeared subsequent to the steps. However, he's slowly dropping his mind. He even considers self-deleting, but he can't do it. When no longer even praying helps, he ultimately receives inside the elevator and unearths a uniform to start a new existence as Carl, in bellhop. Quickly, the married couple gets in the elevator and mate prevent getting handsy. Oliver stays professional until the couple gets off on their floor, wherein Oliver releases a bee that stings the groom and reasons an hypersensitive reaction. Nearby, an explosion may be heard, marking the beginning of a brand new loop. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a comment about your favorite movie, and we will make it next. Thanks for watching.